This guy's been in Cambodia for a long time, been a great fixture of Phnom Penh life, Phnom Penh community. He's done one nerd night before. He's coming back for another one. Can we please have a huge round of applause for our final presenter tonight, John Weeks, talking about Cambodian comics.
Hello. Does anybody, it's going to be tough to top these earlier presentations, but I'll give my best. Does anybody here like comics? No. Does anybody here like comics? Where are my sexy comics assistants? All right. Bernadette, you said it's important to own it. Let's own it. All right. Dina and Warren are going to hand out comics for y'all. Can we start the show? All right. Cambodian comics, subject near and dear to my heart. We have basically three main parts to Cambodian comics. We have the pre-revolutionary time. That's the Ramayana. This is the socialist 80s. And, oh, boom, next slide, nerd night. Get used to it. Pre-war time. That's Ut Ruin, first comic we know of, 1966. Chuan Ra, hilarious stuff. And that's Holsopon. French influence time. People were able to make a living off doing comics. Amazing, amazing stuff. What happened? Well, the war happened. We only have a few existing artists that are still alive from that time. The drawing here is by Ung Bun Hien from his autobiography, his biography that was illustrated called The Murderous Revolution. We had no comics from 1975 to the 1980s. Comics we expect to start in 1966. This is a revolutionary propaganda comic by Ut Ruin called New Life in Kampong Preah. This guy's wearing his medal because he was fighting the good fight against the KR during that time. This is from 1986. What kickstarted the socialist era of comics was this fellow Ut Ruin, also who did an adaptation of the classic Cambodian bad boy story, Torn Chai, a little bad boy who upsets the king most of the time. And other people are just kind of like, hey, they're making money off of this. I ought to do some of this. I should totally do a comic. And people started doing comics. Here are some of the faces behind it. Ut Ruin survived the revolution, thank God, by drawing architectural plans. M. Satya, we'll see more of him. Oryutia, copied a lot of folks, does a lot of covers. Some of them are out there in the audience right now. Imso Ka, who does a lot of scary stuff, adaptations. Sinyang Param, romance, lots of romance. So all of them, okay, so this is Tum Tiu. It's the Cambodian Romeo and Juliet, many say. Very lovely adaptation by Ut Ruin. He has never allowed anybody to copy this work. This is an illegal screen printing copy. This is Romance of the Tiger Lady, Imso Ka, with a cover by Oryutia, and Savanasam, a magical wonder tale. Interesting thing, there's a lot of Indian film here in Cambodia in the 80s, so they include these musical interludes. This is a Kampong Tom is in the Heart. That's the musical break. Here's another musical comic based on a song, Sell Your Rice Field and Go to the Bar. Luik Sarai, Cho Bar. One of the hidden comics talents of Cambodia, Svai Ken. He retired from the Samaki Hotel, back when it was a socialist hotel. Now it's the Royale. You might know of it. You might have heard of it. He did painted stories in sequence about his wife's life, his life with his partner, and his friend Ingrid Muan, hidden comics talent. This is the thoughts of Sinyang Parom, one of the talents of that period, and she basically lived through the Khmer Rouge time, came out on the other side, did her romance comics. Then the market started to drop off from 1989 to 1993. It started to level down. They had sold most of their comics to middlemen. So overseas Cambodians, meanwhile, were doing their own thing. They were starting to, develop their own styles. This is Ung Bun Hien down below, and up there, Phu Sera Ing, starting to do his impressive work in Pasé Rouge. So the Murderous Revolution, you get that at some of the photocopy shops here, unfortunately. Not many original copies here. So these are all outreach comics. Land is Light, Wrath of the Phantom Army, I Must Leave, The Trap of Sensuality, Land is Life, At the Factory Gates, Life's Choices, all didactic comics by NGOs. This is a third period of comics, and the most recent period, where comics are supported by nonprofits, and these are the artists of this period. Young people who've grown up in the post-revolutionary baby boom, and many of them work for doing these didactic comics, and they'll do comics for fun as well. We're starting to see comics are being supported by in an artistic sensibility. This is a French intervention that went from 2001 to 2004, mostly at Phare Pon Salpak in Battambang. They put their comics online. There's some great stuff. They did a travel book, 7 months in Cambodia. They taught a lot of students about the traditional French way of doing things. And you know, the great thing about the French is they're just kind of like, yeah, I do comics. They're not like, oh, it's so hard doing comics. Nobody appreciates me. So, of course, the French, once again, it's coming in. They do a comics exhibition year 2004. Had a lot of fun with that. We had a speaker truck like they used to have for films. And in the speaker truck, it'd be like, you know, comics exhibition, come and see it. Way to kind of get it out to the mass audience. Next year, Fuser Ing came out. That guy you'd seen earlier, one of the overseas Cambodians, came back. Was very interested in reconnecting with his roots. So he not only drew comics about Cambodia with a very sophisticated French-informed style, he also started teaching comics at the French Cultural Center, Phare Pon Salpak. And we also had our first comics NGO, which I come to you from. It's called Our Books. And we published M. Satya. After the comics crash in the early 90s, he basically waited 17 years until he could finish Flower Battambang. And we launched it with an exhibition in the year 2007. That was a lot of fun to see. And there's a young community of Cambodian comics artists developing. Here they are linking up with the world on the 24-hour drawing day. If any of you guys want to join in, it's in October usually, and we welcome anybody to come and join and draw. There's been a women's comics workshop. We now have Cambodian comics webloggers. That's lovely to see. And there's more works. I'm out of time. But look, here's some products from Sera's teaching. This is Aki Ra, the guy who runs the Landmine Museum. Here's some stories, some new French comics that are out and are available at the French Cultural Center. So my time is up. Thank you so much. And you own it now.
Are there any questions for John? It looks like a lot of the comics are in either Khmer or French. Are there any in English?
Question for me?
Yeah. Yes. No question for that. Let's ask the audience.
We do have comics in English. There's an interesting trend in the late 80s and early 90s of doing comics in English. And that was because I think things were loosening up a bit. And there's maybe 3 or 4 comics that are perennially reprinted. So one is Niang Rom Sai Sok, and there's one secret agent story. And but yeah, there's a few, but not many. Many nonprofit comics often have an English version as well. And we're starting to get into digital comics. Almost every comic that Our Books produces now has a digital version. We just finished converting Heritage Watch's Wrath of the Phantom Army into iPad and Mobi format for the Kindle.
Whoa, high tech. What's the process of coming up with a comic? Do you like come up with the storyline first or the characters, or like, do you have a template that you just fill out?
Well, actually, that's a good point. The Anglophone world, they're a bunch of whiners. So they can be whiners sometimes. There's not a lot of money in comics. There's not a very strong career track for being a comic artist. It's starting to grow. It's starting to change a lot in the last, I'd say, 20 years or so. In France, we had the French people come out. I met them in 2001. I was so excited to meet the people who were teaching at Phare Pon Salpak, and they're just kind of like theater people. They're like, oh yeah, it's my job. You know, I have to scan these pages and give them to my editor. I love that. I envy that. You know, I was like, I don't want to strangle them just because I was so envious. So the French, we have a lot to learn, and Cambodia has its own comics idioms. The fascinating thing is, if you look at M. Satya's work, you'll find that like the ornamentation on the side of the panels is using the Cambodian kabak, or the ornamentation. So I think that there's a chance for Cambodia, being in between Japan and France, two very big comics cultures, to ideally take the best from both and hopefully not have too much imposed upon it.
Yes.
You mentioned a lot of adaptations. Are there a lot of, there's a lot of creative work as well?